I think it was contrary to what many people may believe. We found it reasonably easy, perhaps because we had spent nearly 5 years in North America before we moved to the US, and we spent 5 years in Canada, a year or so in Montreal, and then 4 years and that's where I did my graduate work. So by this time we were kind of adjusted to the North American lifestyle, etc.
Ji, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Sanjana ji.
So I would like to ask you a question that how was settling down for you in USA?
I think it was contrary to what many people may believe. We found it reasonably easy, perhaps because we had spent nearly 5 years in North America before we moved to the US, and we spent 5 years in Canada, a year or so in Montreal, and then 4 years and that's where I did my graduate work. So by this time we were kind of adjusted to the North American lifestyle, etc. But in 1969, when we moved, because I did have a job offer, and it was in New York at that time. So we worked there for about maybe a year and a half to 2 years. And during this period, we even ventured into opening a restaurant in the state of New Jersey, the first Indian restaurant in the state of New Jersey. We found a person who was a dishwasher in New York City, and we hired him, and Rani, my wife, trained him at home in cooking for practically a month. And then he was the one who was the main chef. Fortunately, being a first Indian restaurant, and between Princeton and in New Jersey, and Rutgers, between Princeton and Rutgers University, there were a number of students who were found interest in Indian food. And the restaurant became so popular that it was written up in New York Times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was how our experience started in New York, which was probably not so difficult at the time, but we had become used to North America as well. Also, I was in the job for about maybe a year, 18 months, and then the company decided to post me in Paris. So I was in the business development area there, managing the entire sort of the line of the company that I worked for in Paris.
What was the main business? What was the main business of the company?
Pharmaceuticals.
Oh, pharmaceuticals. Okay.
It was actually Abbott Labs, one of the top companies in the world. And so, and another good thing happened while we were in Paris, that we got our daughter while we were in Paris, even though she was born in the US. but she was barely 4 weeks old when we
Okay.
went.
So that actually makes
Yes,
you, yeah.
so that was a very pleasant sort of experience, and so we were there about 5 years, and then they posted me in Nigeria for a year or 18 months. From there, we came back to the US. We were then sent to Istanbul, Turkey, and we spent 7 years there. Um, and from Turkey, we were then posted in Indonesia, and 6 or 7 years there. So
So what year was that? So when you came back?
we left the. I retired from Abbott in 2001.
Okay.
So for the past 20, more than 20 years, even though we were US citizens, we are paying the US taxes, etc., employed by a US company, and making frequent trips because our holidays were paid for by the company, etc. In 2001, that's another interesting part. I retired and we came back, and I was told there was a financial crisis at that time in the US. So I was told, could I go back for another year? So, but I told the company that we sold everything, all the furniture and things like that, and so don't worry about this thing. Go back. You'll get a car. Your wife will get a car. You'll get a driver. She will get a driver. Please go back for 1 year. So we go back for 1 year, but it took 3 years, 2.5 years.
Where did you go back?
To Indonesia.
Oh, okay, okay.
So then finally I said, I'm done. I'm not working anymore. And
That was
then,
2004?
excuse me?
That was 2004?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we came back, did some consulting work for Abbott and a few other companies, and then formed our own company. So this has been the life, and the company got sold. We got moved here in California. So that's basically what it is.
So any challenges you faced throughout all this? Was traveling always, was it always a good thing, or did you face any challenges? Or
Not really. Challenges were only going to the new countries, new languages, and things like that. And it is easier to work with when you learn the language. So we spent fair amount of time in learning French because I enjoyed French. But then when we moved into the other countries, it was easier for people to communicate in English. The French, where it was difficult in France, because the French didn't speak that much English, at least as the group that we were dealing with. So yes, that was a challenge. Learning languages, settling in a new environment was always a challenge. But fortunately, because of the reputation of the company, I was fortunate to have worked for them. There was always help available from the head office as well as from the support from the local group. So that's how it is. Yes, there were challenges, but there's not a challenge that I would remember that was a risk or a roadblock or I'm done with this thing and I'm going to leave. No.
okay. So there was always excitement.
Yes.
Doing it,
There were always issues. I mean, I was there was a my finance director. He did not. He had a problem with me. He went and told the police, and the police called to arrest me for whatever he had told. And I took somebody with me from the office, and he tried to explain it to the police that this is all a lie. And then they interviewed me. And I told the police that here is the truth, and go and find it out for yourself. And they did. And they arrested him. They never took me to any jail or something. But those were the kinds of challenges. You can't avoid life without challenges like that. And then they asked me, do you want us to kill this guy or just leave him in the jail? And I said, no, leave him in the jail until he understands or learns his experiences.
Yeah.
So, those are the sorts of things that you cannot avoid.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Virenji. That was wonderful.
It's my
I had a great
pleasure.
time
It's
talking to you.
it's so nice to be able to, if the new generation which wants to come to North America or to the US, I am sure that they will learn things have changed compared to 50 years ago, 40 years ago.
If you wanna talk about anything at all, then you know who to call. Just tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Just tell Sanjana.